Look, have you ever walked into a store knowing exactly what you're supposed to buy and somehow walked out with something completely different? You didn't compare specs, you didn't do the math, you didn't even need it, but it felt right. And later, maybe hours, maybe days, you tried to justify it logically. Yeah, but the quality's better. I'll use it more. It was basically an investment. If that sounds familiar, yeah, that's not an accident. Here's the thing. I am John, and I spend way too much time thinking about marketing psychology and consumer behavior. And if you're someone who has ever wondered why you buy things that don't make sense on paper, or why certain brands feel impossible to quit, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Because today, we're talking about something uncomfortable, powerful, and extremely intentional: why brands want you emotional, not rational. The belief most people get wrong. Most people believe this one thing: I'm a rational buyer. They think emotions are just a side effect of buying. But look, this is where it already goes wrong. In reality, emotion comes first and logic shows up later, mostly to clean up the mess. Now, you might be thinking, okay, John, sure, emotions matter, but I still care about price and value. And you're right. But here's what most people don't realize. Price and value only matter after emotion gives them permission to matter. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine two identical products, same quality, same function, same price. One is sold by a brand you trust. The other is sold by a brand you feel nothing about. Which one do you choose? Exactly. And notice what didn't happen. You didn't run calculations, you didn't open spreadsheets, you didn't ask for data. You felt your way to the answer. That's the point. Why rational marketing is weak. Look, if humans were truly rational buyers, marketing would be boring. Ads would say, here are the features, here's the price, here's the comparison chart. Done. But brands don't do that. Instead, they show you people smiling, struggle and triumph, belonging, identity, meaning. Why? Because rational arguments are fragile. Emotions are sticky. This is where it gets really interesting. Here's what brands understand that most consumers don't. Rational thinking invites comparison. Emotion shuts comparison down. When you're emotional, you don't ask, what else is out there? You ask, does this feel like me? And once a brand becomes part of your identity, logic becomes optional. Let's say, purely hypothetical, you're choosing between two options. Option A feels exciting, inspiring, and aligned with who you want to be. Option B is technically cheaper and more efficient. Even if option B saves you money on paper, option A wins more often than people like to admit. Why? Because emotional satisfaction feels immediate, logical savings feel distant, and humans are wired to prefer now over later. Here's the psychological driver at play. Your brain has two modes: fast, emotional, intuitive; slow, logical, analytical. Marketing almost always speaks to the first one because the second one, it asks questions, it hesitates, it delays decisions. Brands don't want hesitation, they want momentum. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but I still research before buying. Sure, but notice when you research, usually after you already like something. Research becomes confirmation, not discovery. That's not rational decision-making. That's emotional commitment looking for justification. Ever notice how premium brands say less? They don't explain, they imply, because explanation invites scrutiny. Emotion bypasses scrutiny. Silence feels confident. Confidence feels expensive, and expensive feels trustworthy. Here's what most people don't realize. You're not buying products, you're buying a story about yourself. Smart, disciplined, successful, creative, responsible. Brands don't sell outcomes, they sell identities. And once identity is involved, rationality steps aside. Why this works so well. Emotion does three powerful things. It speeds up decisions, it reduces regret, and it builds loyalty. Logic does the opposite. It slows you down. So from a brand's perspective, the choice is obvious. The real cost of emotional buying. Now, I'm not saying emotion is bad, but unmanaged emotion is expensive. When emotion leads and logic follows, people overpay, overcommit, stay loyal longer than they should, and brands know this. They don't exploit it accidentally, they design for it. So what do? Here are a few practical steps you can apply immediately. 1. Delay emotional purchases. If it feels urgent, that's a signal, not a reason. 2. Separate identity from utility. Ask, would I still buy this if nobody knew I owned it? 3. Force a comparison. Emotion hates alternatives. Logic loves them. 4. Name the feeling. Once you label the emotion, it loses power. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Marketing isn't about persuasion anymore. It's about emotional alignment. Brands don't want you convinced, they want you connected, because connection doesn't argue, it commits. Look, emotion isn't the enemy, but when you don't recognize how it's being used, you don't choose freely. And the moment you see it clearly, you don't become immune, you become aware. And awareness is power. If this changed the way you think about marketing even a little, hit like, subscribe for more marketing strategies, and I'll see you in the next one.